moving on, we'll go ahead and get into our kind of topic and conversation about the scoring of Elden Ring. I mean, it seems like everyone is scoring it very nicely and very high. Oh, I just remembered what I wanted to say. So one thing that kind of led into the scoring was I kind of watched a video. I don't know if you got to watch it. I sent it to you earlier with Alana Pierce. And I don't know, I kind of felt like some of the stuff she said was stuff I'd kind of always felt. But I don't know, it was kind of just confirmation for me as to things that were going on. She was just kind of talking about some of the background stuff that goes on at IGN in terms of their scoring. And we won't go into it much because I feel like you kind of touched on it earlier about how you'd rather hear someone reviewing a game that's more of a fan of it than someone that's not, because someone as a fan can kind of, I don't know, give more context, give more background knowledge on it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I watched her video too, and I understand her whole thing was typically people who review games are the ones who sign up as those who want to review the games, and those people are picked from a list, and therefore the person who typically reviews the game is somebody who has a favorable disposition towards it, which I know might sound like a negative, like, oh, they're going to be biased, they're going to make it, a
It
perfect
does
10
at
every single
first, but
time.
once you think about it,
Here's the thing, people are always going to be biased one way or the other. Like, the other extreme of that is somebody gets stuck with a game they don't like at all. Like, if and once again, I haven't played it, but let's assume that I really hated Dark Souls games, okay? And I was asked to, review Elden Ring. I'm probably going to have a miserable time. And then my review score is going to represent that. And I don't think that's fair, especially for the community who probably will want to play this game. They don't care what I think as a non-fan of the game. They want to know people who are intimate with the mechanics of the game, how they really felt about it, and if it's, moving forward in the right direction for that genre of game. I mean, I definitely think there can be too much fanboyism. Like, I think I mentioned this to you, a fan should be the one reviewing the game, but not a fanboy. And I've definitely seen examples of that where people are just way too hyped about a game that they, have their critical blinders up and they don't pick on things that should be critiqued. I know the one that comes to mind, I think I mentioned it to you, the Pokemon Sword and Shield review from however many years
I don't
ago.
remember who's which company or which review
It
we
was
were talking
IG.
about.
It was IGN. I don't remember the exact reviewer name. I saw it in a video the other day. And it reminded me. I think they gave that game like a 9 point. It's like a 9.7 or a 9. It was like mid to high nines.
It's probably
And
reviewed
here's
by
the thing.
like I actually know a lot of the. It's probably by like Casey DeFreitas or maybe Seth Macy.
I think it was Casey.
Casey
I could be
DeFreitas. She
wrong.
was the former host of Nintendo Voice Chat, their Nintendo podcast.
That sounds right to me. But regardless of who did it, they clearly overlooked some stuff in that game. There's one thing to be hyped about a game, and you don't have a lot of time to dig into all the features. I get the constraints that come around reviewing a game. Um, but, I mean, I'm a Pokemon fan. I know you're a Pokemon fan,
Mm-hmm.
and we both played Sword and Shield. Would you rate that in the upper nines, like high-end Pokemon games?
Now, for me, it was like, I mean, I hate putting numbers. I'm not good at putting numbers. I would
Right.
somewhere
And I'm
between a
not asking you to do
six
that.
or a seven. It was a
Right.
an average Pokemon experience. I felt like.
Well, I guess my point is, like, she definitely leaned more on that fanboy, whether it was hype or whatnot, or maybe she truly just didn't see issues with it. But that is, I think, the extreme people worry about, right? You get somebody who they enjoy that kind of game, so they're just going to give it a really high score, which does happen. I think ultimately, though, I mean, I do want somebody who understands the game mechanics, enjoys the game, but at the same time, every review you look at is just one person's opinion. Even if typically you agree with them on games, that they played in the past, that doesn't mean you're going to agree with them on this. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the best thing you can do is just, watch a bunch of different reviews from a bunch of different places. And, preferably if you can find people who you tend to agree with, that might give you a good idea on what to kind of lean
And
towards. Like, I
ultimately,
know for you and me, we both watch a lot of skill up stuff, and I
mm-hmm.
seem like even if here's what I like about his reviews. I know we mentioned his name a lot, and that may not be something that people live to hear about. But if you haven't checked out Skill Up, please do. He's got great content.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I like about it is I don't agree with all of his stances. There are games that he's liked and I've hated, and there's vice versa. But the way he explains the game, it comes across as unbiased and objective as I think you can in a review. He definitely shows what he, likes from a subjective standpoint, but even if he loves a game, he outlines really clearly what might not be so hot about
Mm-hmm.
it. And I really respect and appreciate that type of perspective when giving a review. It feels pretty well balanced, but you definitely get a feel for his general take on it at the same time. So that's what you got to do. Basing it on a score is not the best way to go about it. But I understand people want to kind of just compartmentalize it, get an easy number so they can decide if they're going to buy something or not. And that has led us to our IGN 10 out of 10 list, which has some interesting entries on there.
I just wanted to add on to what you were just saying, though, or just onto the previous little chat we were just having is if you're worried about review scores, or if you're worried about, like, you know, whether you should, I don't know, really take to heart what the person is saying, something I try very much to do is really try to get to know the reviewer. I mean, if you're worried about extreme biasism, if you're worried about them either being a fan or a fanboy or just a casual reviewer, look into who the reviewer is. Like I said, from almost any IGN review, once I see the review up, I immediately go to, okay, who's reviewing this? Oh, it's Seth Macy, he's a Nintendo guy. Oh, it's Ryan McCaffrey, oh, he's an Xbox diehard guy. Oh, it's Jonathan Dornbush, that's a PlayStation guy. You know what I mean? It's like, kind of know your reviewers. The same thing with Kotaku and YouTube. You know, just, I don't know. That'll give you a good understanding of where that person's coming from, I guess.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, like you were saying, so that moves us over here.
So before we get into any of these games, and you mentioned this, I'm not, real big on if a game is a 10 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. I mean, I look at, does the game look like it has something fun that appeals to me? But
go ahead.
I guess I was going to say, like, if you were going to, like, rate a game perfect, 10 out of 10, whatever it may be, what are your qualities that would make a game a 10 out of 10? Does it have to be, perfect at every level? Like, technically it's a marvel? Does it have to, push the genre forward 10 years? Like, what makes a game a quote-unquote 10 out of 10 game for you?
I mean, I guess in the absolute most simplest terms, I feel like a 10 out of 10 should be a game where you have to struggle to describe its cons. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are games like that, like, where it's hard for you to, like, say exactly what the problem with the game is. Like, games like that for me would be like Mass Effect 2. I would say there's a, Zelda's got maybe one or two of those type of games. Rockstar's got quite a few of that. But yeah, I would just say in simplest terms, games where you have to, like, really stretch to like have a con or some sort of particular problem. And but yeah, so I don't know.
Interesting. And I don't disagree with that. I guess my take on it would be every game is going to have a con or a flaw. Like we mentioned this earlier, talking about performance issues and whatnot. No game can be perfect.
But how major? Yeah.
Right. But I mean, when you say con, I mean, what kind of con are we talking about? Are we talking about, like, technical issues like we're seeing with Elden Ring, or like technical issues on the scale of like Cyberpunk, or are we talking about, I just don't really like that gameplay or design choice they made? Like, when you say con, what are you referring to?
I mean, it's also subjective as to, like, what you, the gamer, like most. Like, I mean, are there gameplay elements that you feel like hinder the experience? Like you were saying, are there graphical problems? Is there a lack of story? Is it, like, a very kind of basic, kind of environment? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a whole bunch of things. It all depends on what you, the gamer, are looking for. Because there's games that most certainly don't look very good, but are fantastic to play. I mean, I could name off a bunch from, like, the Game Boy Advance era. That games aren't, games that aren't exactly lookers, but, like, I don't know, one that jumps off the top of my head, Legacy of Goku 2. Not a great not a great looking game, but I would argue it's one of the best Dragon Ball Z games ever made.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. I guess here's just my take on it, and we don't waste too much time because I know we want to get into this list, but I think a game can have flaws and still be, to me, a quote-unquote 10 out of 10 game. Like, to me, it very much has to be one of those things where it's like, what is it? How does that phrase go? Greater than the sum of its parts. What's that? Oh man, I can't recall the phrasing. Huh?
I didn't hear how you started it.
It's that phrasing. When the total is greater than the sum of its parts, whatever it may be. Is that it? I don't know. What I'm getting at is,
yeah, I don't know.
It's basically just an adage. It's basically saying that, you have all these individual components that may not be all that amazing on their own. They might have some issues, but when you put it together, the result, culminates in this thing that is so much greater than the sum of its parts. That's it, greater than the sum of its parts. Man, I can't believe I couldn't get that. because every one of these games on this list, me, it helps because we have hindsight now. The hype's not there, so
We
you
can
can
go
take a game
down
more
kind of
critically.
individually once we start.
Yeah. But I guess my point is, you could, every one of these games, say, there's a clear flaw, there's a clear issue, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that some of these games aren't, especially for their time, a 10 out of 10. I do think you have to take into account when this game came out. Like, comparing Breath of the Wild to Ocarina of Time is not a fair comparison, right? So you have
Mm-hmm.
to understand when it came out, the gaming industry at the time, and so on. But yeah, let's go and hop in.
Actually, one thing I did want to bring up is another thing Alana Pierce had said in her video was I felt like would be an interesting question to kind of bring to you, but what exactly details a masterpiece? Because she was saying she had problems with Elden Ring, but she was like, I still think it's a masterpiece. But she was saying she would score it an 8 or a 9. So it's like, well, masterpiece is kind of a strong word. Should that only, in your opinion, should that only be used for 10 out of 10s? Or can you see a game having larger flaws than others but still being called that?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a masterpiece without it being perfect, if that makes sense. Like, Elden Ring is the culmination of all these FromSoft games and Dark Souls games. It is the epitome of their game design
But is every 10 out
philosophy.
of 10 a masterpiece?
Not necessarily. Especially, that's the thing. Like, and man, numbers are really
It's
bad
yeah, it's
metric
all.
to do games on. Like, I like the more subjective kind of approaches. Like, a game should be played, a game should not be played, or a game like is a masterpiece, or casual. Like, I think those kind of more subjective terms are better for rating games with, rather than 9 out of 10 stuff like that. But yeah, you can have a masterpiece of a game. Like, I'll tell you, like Breath of the Wild, and we're going to see in a minute. I think is a masterpiece. It is a beautiful game. The vision was clearly sought out in that game
I
for
agree.
what the game
I
designers
agree.
wanted to do. But I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. Like, I don't think it's my perfect Zelda experience. I think for what they were trying to accomplish, it was exactly what they wanted to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for that, it was a masterpiece in that regard. But it's not the perfect Zelda game to me. Now, let's go down the list. We can probably break these
Oh,
down.
by the way, feel
But
free to go check out Alana Pierce's channel. I mean, she's former IGN reviewer, so she's got good credentials. She now works for who's she works for the I think she works for the God of War developer now.
oh, does she?
Yeah, she's a
Well, she's
writer.
better credentialed than we are, so
Yeah,
ignore our opinions. We have no idea what we're
yeah.
talking
She
about.
she she.
Why are you guys even here?
Oh
So,
no, not so. You could be doing that if you wanted to. Don't sell yourself short. But yeah,
too fun, too
so
fun.
so I guess first one we're gonna go. Do we need to talk about Elden Ring if we just talked about it
No, I
for?
think we've hit that dead horse already. So,
So I guess Onward is a game I haven't played yet, but I really want to play. Forza Horizon 5. So yeah, I mean, I haven't played it. You're the only one here that's played it between the two of us. So, how do you feel about it?
I enjoyed it. I I don't know. It's hard for me to say 10 out of 10 on it because I didn't spend enough time with it, and my interest in racing games has dropped off. And that's something else to keep in mind too. Like, a game can be a perfect masterpiece game, and I don't have to like it. Right? As long as it's for a certain group of people, the game they were looking for, and the epitome of that game design philosophy. I think it could still be a 10 out of 10. And from what I played of Horizon, it was very well polished, had a lot of great features. The racing was fun. I got a little daunted when I
Mm-hmm.
started looking at how big the map was,
Oh,
and
for sure.
something else was coming out too. I think it was Halo or something. So I was like, yeah, I'd rather play Halo.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great game. I think the quality is there that I wouldn't argue with a 10 out of 10 like, game of the year kind of argument with it. Um, but I don't know if I personally would have given it that score just because once again, it's not my style of game.
I would. I mean, I would just. I've never played. I'm not a big car racing kind of guy, but for me personally, I would just say, when it comes to racing games, my personal like 10 out of 10 or maybe my favorite masterpiece racing games are older games, and I would say my favorite aspect is a little bit
Well,
less.
I want to guess. I want to guess what your favorite one is. Are you
uh
gonna say Burnout?
yeah.
I knew it.
I don't prefer. I prefer generally the more ridiculousness.
The
I like
arcadey
the
ones.
arcadey type.
And Horizon is pretty arcadey.
I'm sure it has aspects of that. Yeah.
And I think that's why I mean, I did enjoy Horizon. It kind of fits that good balance to me. Like, I'm kind of the same way. I typically lean the more arcadey
Which
style, a
Burnout?
little bit of sim.
I like Takedown. Takedown's my favorite.
Oh man, I liked a lot of them.
Was Takedown technically
I
4 or 3?
I thought it was
4.
3. I could be
Because
wrong.
I think Burnout 3 is its own. Oh no, yeah. Either way, go ahead.
I don't remember. Personally, I liked Paradise. I know that was a very different style of Burnout game,
I
but I
just never
liked
got
that.
into it.
My favorite racing game is probably still Need for Speed Underground 2. But
Ooh, I really love the Need. I was gonna mention that if you didn't mention it, but yeah, I love some of those old school Need for Speeds.
yeah. But regardless, I mean, I think the score they gave, Horizon, it was very fair from what I played of it. I'm from all the fans I hear in that community, they're exceedingly happy with it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's kind of the result you look for when a game meets the needs of that gaming community, where they are just in love with it. They're not, pulling out their pitchforks, going
Mm-hmm.
after certain features and whatnot. I think that means that game has reached that, at least for that genre, that 10 out of 10 they're shooting
There's
for.
two.
The next game,
Well, I was just
I'm
gonna
not so
say
sure
with
about.
with racing games, there's two things I care about: crash mode, of course, from Burnout, the best mode ever introduced in racing games,
Mhm.
and what was the police chase in Need for Speed? Those were
Oh,
so
hot
fun.
pursuit kind of
Hot
mechanics, yeah.
Pursuit. Those are probably my favorites. I think those were the PS1 games. But oh, those games were so fun. I used to play with my brother, and one of us would play a Lambo or Ferrari, and the other one would play a police
Mhm.
officer, and so much fun.
Right.
That was we ChazmaN back in the days when we only way to play those games is go to Blockbuster. We ran it for a weekend. So you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. I know you haven't played it. You don't have PS5 yet.
Hmm.
I was kidding.
I'll get one
Um,
eventually.
yeah, no, no.
Maybe. I don't
Um,
know.
like this is one on this list that I don't know how got on this list. And here's the thing: I actually really liked Deathloop. I really
Who
like.
reviewed it?
It was weird because, like, when the game first came out, I don't know, had no idea what the game was. It was a very weird game to understand. I think going
I don't
into
know this
the release
reviewer.
date. Yeah, I don't know, but how do I want to even phrase this? It was a really cool premise. The general gameplay was really fun, but there were just a lot of points that were just straight up lacking. And I think you could argue almost from an objective standpoint, there were just things that it wasn't the perfect, culmination of this gameplay style, or I think even like the developer's vision. I think they could have done other things with this. I think probably would have been
I
preferred. Like
would
the ending
definitely
felt a little flat.
mention the scale up comparison he had with the Arcane's other game. What was it?
Oh, the Dishonored stuff.
The Prey DLC. I think he's
Oh yeah, the Moon Crash. Yeah.
yeah. I was just
And I
saying.
didn't play that. I mean, I played some of the first Prey, and I think I know I've watched a whole playthrough of it, and that game looked, phenomenal. Um, and it's just weird. Like this game, it was not bad. It definitely has a lot of those, familiar characteristics to the other Arcane games, but
Mhm.
it's not the best iteration of them. Had a lot of style, and I mean, the voice acting was great, and just the general theming of it was really cool. But there were some really confusing systems in there. It was a little overly hand-holdy. Like, I don't know. This is one of those games that few people I think understand how it got a 10. Like I'd really like to know what was going on in this guy's head when he's like, yeah, this is the perfect game because it's a good game. It is not a perfect game.
I
Not a
don't have anything to
masterpiece.
input. I have
I know you haven't played it. I'm kind of speaking on my
no
own side over
good.
here, but yeah, I mean, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to keep us going too long. I know there's a lot of games on this list, but
I'll be
most of the
honest.
games
Oh
on
no.
this list, I'm sorry, I was gonna say most of the games on this list, I could typically understand the argument for how it somehow got to that 10 out of 10, but
Hmm.
not this one. I don't know, and I liked this game. It just, I don't know, wasn't there for me.
I was just gonna throw in my personal experience. For some reason, for me, it's hard to get into the Arcane games. I don't know. I played Dishonored 1 through and through. I was just like, eh. I played Dishonored 2, tried playing it, didn't get very
Hmm.
far. I tried playing Prey, and I thought I would really like it, and I don't know. It was another one I just never finished.
They're typically a little slow. Like I had that issue with was it the Dishonored games? I feel like this it took a little bit to get going. This game I think gets you going a lot faster, which is
hmm
nice. And it probably helped too. I was on a big roguelike hit for a while. Like I've been playing Hades a lot. I just run through Returnal.
It looks a
So
lot like that
this
one
game,
game, We Happy Few. I don't know if you ever got to play that one.
yeah, it's styled like that, kind of that 60s vibe.
Hmm.
Um, But I don't know. It was a fun game. I don't want to knock it. I really did enjoy it. It wasn't a 10, in my opinion.
Huh? Well, I'll believe you.
That's right. That's right. You will. No, just kidding.
I have no
Right.
no original opinions. Okay, so let's switch back over.
Yeah.
So
I guess
this is
just for you to stop on games that I know you played or something. I know
this
we've
is
got like just like 20 games on here.
this is one I've really been wanting to play, and I don't know anything about it. Is Disco Elysium? Is that one you've tried out? If not, we won't go too far. I don't know anything about it. I just know it sounds.
No, I know for the longest time it was only on PC. And I think they finally put out a Switch version. I'm definitely interested. I've heard great things about it, but I can't give an opinion one way or the other.
It's definitely one I want to try out. I mean, it says it's traditional pen and paper RPG. That's interesting. Noir detective fiction, twisting plot, side quests.
I've
That sounds
watched some
fun.
videos of it. I don't know. It doesn't. At least just looking at it, it seems like it's going to jump out and grab me. It seems like it's kind of slow. Like I think it's one of those games you have to get into the narrative with and really kind of understand the inner workings of the RPG element. So I don't know. I'd have to really give it some time.
Next, we have three games that, again, these are games I don't have experience with. I would say the only thing I've heard from Spelunky 2 is I think Damon, or, not, yeah, Damon Hatfield with IGN. I think he's a gigantic Spelunky fan. Like it's like one of his favorite games of like the last 10 or 20 years. So he's the only reason I know about Spelunky is him mentioning it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, there were a couple of YouTubers I watched who were given that like game of the year, game of the decade. So I mean, I'm sure it's a quality game for those who are into that. It's kind of like a pseudo roguelike, I believe.
Wasn't
I
the
just don't know
first
the
one a
details about it.
3DS game or DS?
Might have been. I know. Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Can't say.
Okay. So Fight Simulator is another interesting one. The only reason I know about it or know about how good it is because of, again, here he is, Seth Macy. He's more of a Nintendo guy, but I think his background is he was in the military or he was in the Air Force or something. So that's why they put him on there. Okay. Here's another one.
Right.
Last of
And
Us
this
Part
one
2.
you did not play, but I know you were very opinionated on.
No, I haven't played it hands on. I watched. I like Angry Joe sometimes. I really like him sometimes. I used to like him more before, but I still kind of watch him and enjoy his content now. But yeah, I watched his Twitch kind of entire stream of it. His whole like, I don't know. I think it took him 25 hours, 20 hours to beat it or something.
hmm
Oh, but you played it, so.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discourse about this, and I mean, I think if you sit here and you argue the narrative issues with it, or maybe not issues, but the various opinions on how the narrative should have gone, I mean, you could be here all night trying to decide
Jonathan
if it was the right
Dornbush.
decision.
He hosts. Well, shoot, he hosts whatever IGN's. Oh, Beyond their
Yeah.
PlayStation podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I enjoyed this game. I don't know if I would have given it a perfect 10. Nothing to do with the story. Like, the story is what it is. I think, here's the thing, the story was executed well. I mean, regardless if you agreed with the direction the story went, it was acted very well. The cinematics were great. I mean, I guess what I didn't like about it was, honestly, the moment-to-moment gameplay wasn't as fun to me, and the pacing felt really off. For those who have played it, there's a big shift that happens halfway through, and to me, the pacing just kind of tanked. I know they were trying to do from a narrative structure, but to me, that really just pulled me out of the game a little bit. So, I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
my one problem is, and again, I'm coming from somebody who has never played either game. I haven't played one. I haven't played two. Granted, that's all bad on me. I've been meaning to play the first one at some point. I will do it on stream, maybe in the next month or two. So, but I think my big problem with it is I don't want to give spoilers. There, like you said, there is a narrative shift, and when that narrative shift happens, there are other characters that get kind of pushed into the spotlight, and I don't know, like, just the parts that I enjoyed in terms of the most on stream from watching Angry Joe were the parts that had to do with, more of like, gosh, I can't think of the word. What is it? Reminiscing. There were like dream-like.
Oh yeah, the flashback.
Flashback. Couldn't think of the word flashback. Yeah, the kind of
Well,
stuff
that's
that.
the thing. Like, most people who like The Last of Us, they like it because of the Joel and Ellie connection. And
Mhm.
this game really pushes that connection a little bit, and it definitely adds some cool layers to things. I guess here's my what I would take away from it, and why I wouldn't put Last of Us Part Two a perfect 10. Like, so Last of Us Part One and Part Two, I mean, they're both games in a similar vein, but I think Last of Us Part One hit a perfect balance of pacing, narrative, story, gameplay. The gameplay was a little wonky in places. Like, once again, that game felt like a full realization of what it wanted to be, and I could understand the argument for that being a 10 out of 10, a masterpiece, at least in that regard. Part two, to me, felt unneeded. I felt, if anything, it kind of lessened part one a little bit. Not that I think part two was bad, and I mean, I think there are definitely some cool things that happened in it, but I don't think it elevated the franchise any further or made the game any better in many cases. Like Last of Us Part One, I feel like accomplished everything it really needed to accomplish. So I don't know. I guess that's why, to me, just in general, Last of Us Part Two would be lesser than Part One. So I don't see how I would want to place that on the same pedestal I have it, putting it that 10 out of 10. But
I
I
think
don't know.
my
I'm probably
one.
getting semantics.
Yeah, my one major problem with the game is like, I just felt like it was a downer. Like there was just nothing happy. There was nothing like.
Which I'm okay with that. I mean, games can have, a goal of giving you a certain emotion. Like, this game wasn't supposed to be happy. And honestly, the first game wasn't supposed to be happy either, and it really wasn't. Um, so I don't think that is an inherent issue with it.
I feel like though any. See, this is the kind of the problem I had with even something back in the day is like The Walking Dead, where like if there's no goal, if there's no sense of like you ever being able to approach a sense of normality or a sense of completion or anything, it's just like I don't know. For me, it all just it's not satisfying and I guess not rewarding, and to an extent, like
Hmm.
there has to be some sense of like of a an end goal, and that
I'm
game,
gonna hard disagree with you on,
really.
at least for The Last of Us. Like, it, here, oh man, I was looking where I want to say this. The Last of Us is not that kind of game. Like, even if I ignore Last of Us Part 2, like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, put that off to the side. Last of Us Part 1 did not end, really in a happy place. I mean, there was a lot of, unknown and ambiguous stuff happening at the end. It was very kind of unsettling and
All right,
uneasy.
when you're
But
done,
I
you
think
got to
it,
defend The Walking Dead. So you
oh
better
no, I
prepare.
won't. Well, Walking Dead's,
I'm kidding.
it's
You don't have
different.
to. Don't get into Walking Dead.
Yeah, oh, I won't. Trust me. But like, and that's what I liked about Last of Us initially being one game. Like, it reached a culmination, an ending, and yes, the ending was kind of open-ended and a little sad, but that was the beauty of it. You could really think about it and really kind of digest what happened, draw your own conclusions.
Well,
Like,
plus that was only
that's
the
where the
first game.
satisfaction of that happened. Hmm?
That plus that was the first game. It's like, you know,
And I feel like it should have stayed there. I think that's my point. Is
yeah.
like, any satisfaction you did get from that. I can understand if maybe that's just not your style. You like things to wrap up a little neater. I personally liked the way Last of Us One left it kind of open. Last of Us Part Two tried to put a bow on certain
It
things.
opened up old wounds that were healed. Yeah.
The only thing is that opened up old wounds. It's just the first one I think was so beautiful just because, and I don't know if it's worth even spoiling at this point, but the
I'm still
way
gonna
it
play it.
ended. Okay, oh, have you watched the end of Last of Us Part One?
We've talked about this. I know how it ends, but no, I haven't like watched it. I know just what happens.
And you really need to play it. Like, those are games I think being involved playing it does make a difference as opposed to just
Mm-hmm.
watching a let's play of it. But I don't know. It ended open ended, which was kind of the beauty of it. You could
Mm-hmm.
really kind of think about the ending and how it played out on your own. But when you take a game like that and then you solidify a canon, follow up to that with like Last of Us Part Two, it took that feeling away a little bit. Not that what they did was necessarily bad or good. I mean, it was a direction, and you could agree with the direction or not, but I don't know. It lacked that subtlety that one had. And granted, this was supposed to be a more brutal game. That was the point of it, and I think that was fine. But I don't know. I want to be on this one all night. We're definitely spending a lot of time. But
Yeah.
my general take: two, not nearly as good as one. One, I think, deserved the masterpiece title. Two did not.
All right. So yeah, let's start speeding this up a little bit. So Overwatch, yay or nay?
Um. Oh man, I'm gonna get flack for this. Man, I played Overwatch a lot, but I like TF2 a lot better
Yeah.
for the class-based kind of multiplayer stuff.
I'll be honest. It's been a
Um,
while though since I've gotten into that type of game. I would say TF2
at the time. Yeah. And here's the thing: you got to try to remember the snapshot of time that game popped out. Wait, that says that Overwatch was reviewed in 2020. Is that right?
Reviewed May 19th, 2020.
That game was older than 2020.
That might have been a
re-release for like the Switch or something. Maybe that's it.
Oh, update. It just says update.
Okay.
Oh, note to mark the 4th anniversary and release of its final hero.
Okay, I was about to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I enjoyed Overwatch. I don't know. Maybe I'm not in tune enough with that style of game to say if it was a 10 out of 10 or not. It wasn't. I don't know. I'm not as big on the super competitive style class-based games like that. TF2 I liked because it was a little wonkier and I don't know, it had more character to me. Anyways, let's see. I played Persona. I know you didn't.
I don't know anything about the Persona games. I know they're pretty
game.
classical JRPGs.
Yeah, I could understand the argument for that being a 10 out of 10 or a masterpiece. It definitely had some downsides, but man, it was just such a big game. And Royal really did add a lot to it. So I agree with that one. I know we're trying to speed run this, so I'll just give it a yay.
Yay. Half-Life Alyx? I haven't played that one.
I haven't played all of it. I started like the first hour of it.
You have it, right, for Oculus?
Yeah. I got it for Steam, and I can stream it to my Quest 2, which works pretty well. It's neat. I mean, it's creepy. It's the reason I haven't followed through with it.
I mean, I would have on this list
like it.
Half-Life 2, but I would say as long as it, transfers that experience of Half-Life 2 to a VR-like experience, then that's all it really has to do.
And I won't go into spoilers, but it does move forward the full Half-Life story. So definitely
I'll play it. Maybe I'll get an Oculus some point later on or something. So yeah, we'll move on. Red Dead Redemption 2. This would be a close one for me personally, but I would say nay.
I'd say nay.
I really enjoyed it. I thought there were good aspects, but I would say I liked Red Dead Redemption 1 more than Red Dead Redemption 2.
100% agree. I mean, I would say the narrative in 2 was probably better. Like, honestly, it was one of the best played out stories.
It's probably a better game, but...
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. I would say the story is probably better. Like, Arthur's, character arc and how he went through with... Oh, what was the leader's name? Dutch.
Dutch, yeah.
Like, that whole relationship was really cool. The ending was like... The story was great, but there was definitely the point when I was playing this game that all I wanted to do was plow through the missions and just see the end of the story. The gameplay, man, didn't work for me. Like, I'd have to play them both side by side, but Red Dead 1 had that like arcadey feel a little bit. It felt a little cartoony, which I really liked. It was still realistic to a certain extent, but 2 took it to that super realistic level where it lost some fun, became more tedious, and I was just like, man, I don't care about all this simulation-like stuff. I just want to play a game.
I think the biggest problem for me was I just didn't think Arthur Morgan was as interesting as John Marston. I just liked John Marston more. I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, I liked Arthur. He was a different kind of character than Marston, but you get a lot of interaction with Marston too. So I mean, I liked what they did with that game narratively.
I feel like it went on way too long too. I remember.
Way too long.
I think I must have been at 30 or 40 hours until I got to the end.
Yeah, no. And just the gameplay did not support it for that long to me, but either way.
Next, we'll move on to another one I haven't played, but definitely want to, is God of War. I totally missed if you haven't noticed, I totally missed about all of the PlayStation 4 games, because I never had one. But, yeah, so what were your... did you play this one?
I did. Man, I'm torn on this one. I'm trying to think even where to begin. Like, I mean, I could definitely understand the argument for it being top tier game, masterpiece, 10 out of 10, whatever. But I don't know if it's my favorite God of War. I haven't played them all, to be fair. But the style changed so much. Like, I liked the super fast paced, just crazy style from the old school God of Wars. This one slows it down a lot. Now, the narrative is far more engaging. It's a beautiful game, and for those purposes, I definitely think it's a better game. But just the moment-to-moment gameplay, I preferred the old school ones. But I don't know. I can definitely understand the argument for 10 out of 10.
No, and I agree with your sentiment on the old school ones. I mean, I have only played, in terms of God of Wars, I've only played God of Wars 1 and 2, and those are pretty great games. I really enjoyed those. Matter of fact, at some point, maybe this year I would like to start an entire run through of streams on those games. Like go from 1. I haven't played any. I've only played 1 and some of 2. So like I would love to go back through 1, 2, 3. I have there was a branch off 4th one. What was it called? I don't remember. But yeah.
Oh, Ascension. That's right.
Ascension, yeah. So I would like to go back through those. And maybe, I still need to get a PS4 or PS5, so I still need to play 4 or the new God of War game.
You can borrow my 4 if you got to.
Yeah. All right, so once again, yeah, that's his thoughts on that. So Celeste.
Let's just look at the ones that we played, and we know we're.
I haven't played Celeste. Super Mario Odyssey. That's one I have played. I didn't finish Mario Odyssey, but from what I played, I thought it was fun and fine. I didn't think it was a huge leap, as other people thought. For me, it was just fun. I would say it's more closely for me, maybe to a 7 or an 8. I
can get behind that sentiment.
I thought it was a little bit too. I know this is weird to say for a Mario game. I thought it was a little bit too cartoony, to an extent, and just kind of. I know Mario's cartoony, but maybe I'm not phrasing that right. But I don't know. It was just a little too out there. I wasn't too crazy about the hat mechanic and all that stuff. What did you think?
I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I think the platforming is probably the best Mario has felt in probably any game. Like, you could do the most with him, I felt like. I just feel like they didn't go far enough with it. Like, it definitely wasn't, or it didn't feel like a true successor to something like Sunshine or Mario 64. Like, it's in that vein, but I don't know. I feel like they could have went a little further with it. I felt at the end it was just kind of lacking in ways, but I don't know. I'm kind of speaking out my butt here on it because I did enjoy it, but I don't know. It just doesn't come across to me as the pinnacle Mario game. Like, I would still rather go back and play Mario World or Mario 3 for that matter.
I'd still rather play Sunshine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to one I know you definitely want to talk about for a minute. Undertale.
We're not allowed to say anything bad about Undertale. Your channel will probably be taken down violently if we do.
I've never played Undertale, so.
It was good. I mean, I can definitely understand the argument for 10 out of 10. It's such a very unique game, and it's definitely something not everybody's gonna like. I enjoyed it, but man, there are definitely, I know people who could not stand that game because it's not the kind of RPG that you might be used to. But for what it set out to do, it did a fabulous job at. And it was one guy who made the whole thing, and some of the music, I mean, they're bangers, so I love that.
So on to one that I would, if you can't tell, me and Phoenix really enjoyed was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Just my basic outlook on it. I didn't necessarily think it was the total game changer, which, I mean, I guess that's been proven to be wrong, because look at how many games have tried to replicate, it's kind of open world magic. I mean, you had, what is that game, Phoenix Rising, or Phoenix whatever. You had Pokemon's kind of venture into it with Arceus kind of going with that deep open world. So yeah, there's a bunch of games that have kind of tried to replicate it since, so I didn't think it was as revolutionary as it was when it first came out, but I still found it really enjoyable, and it was a fun time, and I actually want to go back through and play it again on stream or something. Yeah. So, what did you think?
I'll save my full thoughts for a different video, because man, I could talk a long time about this game. I think I mentioned it. I would give this game that masterpiece title. I would not say it was a 10 out of 10, or even my perfect Zelda experience. Like, there were a bunch of things, like I did not love the Divine Beast as a replacement to the dungeons. I don't know, there's a lot of little game design decisions that I respect, and there's definitely a lot of great things that came out of that game. It is a beautiful game, and there's some great moments in it, but I miss some of the traditional Zelda stuff that got yanked out of it to make Breath of the Wild.
As someone who is a noob Zelda player, I mean, I've only really started playing many of the games recently. I definitely agree that I can see why someone who's a fan of the old stuff wouldn't have been crazy about some of the decisions to break away from some of that stuff. But I think it's a very fun and entertaining, different take on a Zelda game, in a way. It's not my favorite, but yeah, like you said, I enjoyed what they tried to do.
Yeah, it's the direction they should go. They just need to pull some more traditional aspects back into it. But either way.
Next game I want to talk about, Inside. A really interesting game. I mean, So this is made by Play Dead, who are the guys that did Limbo, of course, and it's a really sort of weird world platformer. It's tough to say if this would be worthy of a 10. I would say as an experience, it's a 10 out of 10. As a full-fledged game, maybe it's more like an 8 or a 9, but that is a game that...
Why would that matter? What do you mean full-fledged game? It's a full-fledged game. I mean, what's...
I just mean the experience through and through. Like, it's not absolutely, totally captivating throughout. I remember there were some levels and certain parts that I thought were kind of so-so, but as for, like the beginning, and especially when you start getting towards the latter end of the game, that game gets super weird and crazy and super enjoyable. I just mean there are a few sections that are a little slower and a little less interesting than others, which you could say that for most games. But yeah, as for like an experience as a whole, that is a game that deserves you having being said I played that, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, the game set out to do everything it wanted to do. Like, it was clearly the designer's vision, and there's nothing about that game I think that could have been changed to better represent that vision. And I think at a certain point, that's what... I'm not saying that should make it a 10 out of 10, but that masterpiece, like, it's everything they set out for it to be, and it achieved all those little, bullet points. Like, it was beautiful. The narrative was... I mean, I don't know if I'd say good. It was weird. Definitely made to think about some things. Most of the puzzle mechanics were pretty solid in it. For me personally, I liked Limbo better. Just throwing it out there, but
I liked Inside more. But that was me.
And that's fair. But both of them, I mean, shot for the same type of experience and feel, and they both reached it. Both of those, I think, are 10 out of 10 games. Like, for the experience alone. They may not be your like someone listening. They might be like, "Oh, that game's the worst game in the world." That for them, that may not have been their particular style of game to enjoy. But I think in general, they did a good job.
For me, the same is the classic case of a game that may not possibly be worth a 10, but it is absolutely no lower than an 8. Like, it is a game that is definitely worthy and needs to be experienced at least once. You don't need to go back and play through it. It doesn't need multiple playthroughs. I would find that actually maybe kind of boring of an experience playing it again. Yeah. But like,
honestly, I think... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I won't cut you.
No, it's just a game that it deserves for you to... It's begging for you to go into and kind of figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah, and I think probably a better way... I know we spent way too much time. I admit I didn't think we spent this much time on this list. Yeah. I think the best way to look at all of these, if you're trying to gauge it, is not on the number, the 10 out of 10. I really think the masterpiece title is the culmination of what the designer was trying to do, and that serves the community that's going to enjoy that kind of game. That's really what I think I'm kind of validating or verifying with these games. Like, does it reach that status? Like, Breath of the Wild certainly does. It may not be my 10 out of 10, but it is a masterpiece game. So is Inside. So is Limbo.
I think what's almost as important as if the game is a 10 out of 10 is the fact that, is it worthy of that title? Is it worthy of being considered a masterpiece? You know what I mean? Like, is the game good enough to where it's ridiculous of you saying it's not, I guess. Well, no, maybe that's a bad, because I do think someone should be able to say they don't think Breath of the Wild is a great game. Now, you might be wrong on it, but as a whole, the community agrees,
Yeah, here's how I look at it. Like, a lot of these games, like, you give it a 10 out of 10 one day, but then you look back on it in 3 years and it's like, okay, it's a 7 now, or it's an 8, or it's a 5. Like, your opinion changes. But I think for the games that truly, reach that certain tier standard, they're still masterpieces. Like, I said, Breath of the Wild, I think, will always be a masterpiece, especially considering the time. It's not going to always be a 10 out of 10 comparative game, but it's a masterpiece.
3 Zelda games on here. Ocarina,
yeah, I think there's
Skyward.
some old ones on here.
Yeah.
Skyward's an interesting one, but I think we spent a lot of time on this list.
Well,
unless there's anything else we want to really hit on.
Let me touch on just one last one that'll actually transition into our next topic, but a big one that me and I don't think Phoenix would disagree on, but Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue are here. So yeah, those are... it's a game that's questionable. I would say 10 out of 10 simply based on what it kind of created and, kind of nostalgia. But yeah, once again, that kind of leads us into our next topic,